lab number 55. In this lab, we are finishing the installation of our MobileFirst platform on Ubuntu Server. Basically now the only things that are left is the server configuration and then the runtime installation. So we will do it using the graphical configuration tool. It's the easiest way how to do it. So we will open the terminal, go back to our server using the SSH connection, and we will also need actually the same ways as we were doing previously, running the X server. Make sure you're connecting to the proper IP address, and once all of that is done, we can go inside opt IBM, then the place where you installed your MobileFirst platform. By default it's MobileFirst Platform Server. This one is the location. And then you need to go to the folder called shortcuts, and then under sudo you can run this thing called configuration tool sh. So for Linux it's sh, for Windows it's bat file. And as you can see, the configuration tool will be launched, and this configuration tool will actually allow you to configure a server. I will make this window a bit bigger so it will be easier for us to check what's happening. So first of all, we need to create MobileFirst server configuration. So let's name it somehow, for example, mfp, I don't know, Linux, something like that. Then you need to provide answers to a few common questions. So first one is the location of administration services context root. Let's leave it default. The worklight console is the URL, I mean the context root that we will navigate to in order to open the operational console of our platform. Let's leave it as is. We don't need shortcuts because we don't have UI on this system, so kind of it's not needed. We need to select database, and again in our case it's DB2. So we need to provide the host, the location of this database. In our case it's localhost, and you need to provide the path to jar file. Again, as you remember, because it's on the same machine for us, we need to navigate to opt IBM, then DB2, then Java. And this one is the file. Just click next. The username is again db2 inst1. The password is double-Q was uppercase, double-Q was lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait until it will say that actual database doesn't exist. As in our case, click next. So again, wait until it will check for permissions. Click next. Then we need to select the application server. In our case, it's again, as you remember, it's Liberty profile. The server name is mfp, a default user. This is the place where we can specify some other names for default user and default password. Let's keep it default because we are doing it as simple as possible. Click next, and the final thing is the analytics. So here make sure you will do everything correctly because otherwise the analytics won't work. So first we need to place the check mark, enable connection to analytics server. The next thing is important because you need to provide the proper URL. So first thing is the ports. As you remember, we have different ones. We have 9081 instead of 9080. The other part of URL is correct, but the local host is not possible because if we will choose the local host, it won't work actually properly. We need to provide here the IP address, or even better the DNS if you're running production, but well, of course no DNS here, so just IP address. Make sure you're typing here your IP address, not mine. In my case, the IP address looking like this. Again, otherwise your analytic won't work. And the final thing is to provide the analytics username and the password. In our case, it's admin. Next, click Save. This will save you the XML file that you can use to redeploy further down. And when you click Deploy, it will actually automatically deploy this configuration that was made to the server instance that we have under name MFP. Of course, meanwhile, it's creating the required databases. You have workload database for admin database. You also have a database that's required for server itself, and so on. And at the end, you will need to see something like build successful. So this means that you achieved the positive result. Otherwise, it will be saying build failed. You can close this window and do one more thing. Add a MobileFirst Runtime environment to configuration. So you need to select configuration. We have only one, so it's MFP Linux. And then the name of the runtime. Let's name it something like MFP Server. Password for analytics is the same as admin. Wait for validation. And let's click OK. So now, again, very important, otherwise you will fail to complete this lab, is this MobileFirst project context root. So this one is actually the runtime root, which means that you will set up the runtime environment under some URL, and this one will be the URL. So in our test application that we will use for testing our installation success or failure, we will use the URL that actually called MFP server, like this. If you will enter here something else, or you will leave workload, then you won't be able to connect to server from that application because it will look for this context root. And the second thing here is to select the var file. So var file located under IBM, and it's called mfp.server.var. So this var file actually contains all the settings of our runtime, but it doesn't contain the application and adapter. As you remember, in the description for this lab, you have the URL to GitHub where you need actually to download those files. And for our case, we just need to click next and enter again the username for database, db2inst1, and then double Q with uppercase, double Q with lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait for validation and click next. Click save, and then click deploy to deploy this var file. That's it. As you can see, here we have this runtime environment deployed. You can deploy several runtime environments. You can replace a var file if you've made some changes, for example, to authentication config that was done by you or by your developers, but this is not the case for our labs. And you have here actually the logs that are really useful to understand what's happening. So by double click on them, you can actually see what's happened in the console and so on. But we did what we were supposed to, so now we can exit from this server configuration tool. And the final thing before testing is we need to go to our location of our application server and restart the MFP server. So in our case, the location is under IBM folder. So opt IBM with uppercase, then WebSphere, then Liberty, and then bin. And using this sudo, we need to type server stop MFP, and then the same server start MFP. That's it, our server started. So now we can actually open the browser and navigate to our IP address, port 9080, and then workload console. To open the operational console, the username and the password is admin, because as you remember, we that's with default values, and just click login. You should be able to see the runtime that called MFP server. So this one is the runtime that we just installed with this configuration tool. And now it's time to add new application and adapter here. So just click this button and select first the file called test app all VLAP. You should be able to download it from GitHub, and you should do it first, of course, before selecting, and this will install the application. You can see that now we have an app. And the second thing to test is the adapter, test adapter.adapter. So this one is the dummy adapter that goes nowhere. It just replies some dummy text when we are calling it, and we will be using it to test and verify our installation. So what we should do next? Let's go inside our application. As you can see, we have their desktop browser application. We have there this environment, and we can click the link that leads us to our application, and then we need to use the inspect, to use the Chrome developer tools to understand what's happening, and that's why you need either Chrome, either Safari for this test, or Firefox. It really depends on other browsers how it will work, so I recommend one of those three, ideally Chrome. So this app is developed in order to just test the installation. It does nothing except the test. And the first test is to connect to a server. So once you click connect, it will try to connect the URL where actually this application will be. Where we installed the application inside the MFP server runtime, and you will just try to connect from the client-side application to a server. So as you can see, we are connected. It was done successfully. So next thing what we can do is to call the adapter. So remember that we also deployed the adapter here called test adapter. So by clicking call MFP adapter, we will call the adapter. You can see that adapter call was successful. So it's cool, we get some data. And the final test is to log the message using Worklight's logging capabilities from a client side. So we will log this sample message. As you can see, it just says hello from client side. And as you can see, the logs were successfully sent to a server. And now the final thing for us to test is actually go back to our console and try to check if our analytics is working. So we need to click Analytics Console on the top, then provide the username and the password. In our case, it's admin. Click Login. As you can see, we have some sessions here. So most probably it will work. But anyway, let's go to search. And for a client log search, let's type this hello. As you remember, hello from client side. Let's type it the same way, like hello. And yeah, so basically this is the hello from client side. As you can see, was the level warn, so just as we left it here. Actually, that's it. On this step, well, we can say that we successfully verified MFP server installation, except one small thing, the application center. As you remember, we also set up the application center, so the location is the same. The IP address is 9080, and then the App Center console is the URL. The user and the passwords are different by default, so App Center admin is the username, and admin is the password. And this is the application center, how it looks. We can add applications here, we can check the devices or groups. The only thing is that we cannot really test this application center until we'll have the client connection, so from the client side, because if you're not checking the installation itself, it means that you're not checking the application center. So by just adding the app, you won't have the same effect. So we will do it separately in totally separate lab series in day 2 of actually admin lab series, where we will go to administration of our MobileFirst platform. On this step, we are just verifying that the application center is there and installed. That's it. Our small lab series for specifically Linux installation on Ubuntu Server is finished. Thank you and goodbye.